Dr. Mehler, coming at you with more bad news. I wanted to, few remarks, almost at the end of the semester. We've got our last chapter, and then I have assigned The Collapse of Western Civilization, which is this little book which I posted there. I'm going to share my screen and a few words about our final text, our final chapter, A Divided Nation. And I want to say just something about how our nation is divided. The Supreme Court is now about to overturn a 50-year-old decision, Roe v. Wade, that gives women a right to terminate a pregnancy, to control her own body. And the justices of the Supreme Court who are overturning this decision represent about 27% of the American population, about a quarter, maybe a third at most, of Americans, and 70% in favor of the right of a woman to have an abortion. So the divided nation is divided between 70 and 30. If you take a look at the Senate of the United States, what you have is about a 50-50 split, 50 Republicans and 50 Democrats. However, the Democrats represent 41 million more Americans than the Republicans do. In other words, it's a divided nation, but it's not equally divided. The people who are controlling our political destinies represent about 25 to 30% of the American population and have gained their power by undermining American democracy. And that process is continuing. And I have no doubt that the Democrats will lose control of the House of Representatives in the next election and finally lose control of the country itself. And we'll be back in under Republican domination. Here in the state of Michigan, the Republicans have controlled the state legislature for decades. And it's a simple matter. The majority of people who live in Michigan are Democrats, but we live under the domination of Republicans who control the political process by gerrymandering, by controlling who can vote and how people can vote and how their votes are counted. And what we have now is a situation in the United States where you have two major parties, and the Republican Party does not admit that they lost the last election. That does not bode well for the future of the Republic. In fact, it is my view that the American Republic ended in 2016. Remember, it's not just Donald Trump who did not win the election and yet became president. George Bush did not win the election yet he became president. These are gerrymandered elections. So I don't consider this after 2016 the American Republic, because I think the American Republic was part of the American Empire. Let me give you just a short view here. I believe that if you take a look at Western civilization, the civilization that you take a look at, the American colonies, the colonies. Remember, we rebelled against England because we didn't like being a colony. Well, the whole rest of the world were colonies. All of Africa were colonial possessions of white people. The European nations, England and France and the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Ottoman Empire. These were imperial. These were empires that dominated the world. And in World War I, the first three of these great empires collapsed. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Russian Empire, they all collapsed. And in World War II, what you have is then, remember, in World War II, the white people still dominate the planet. And this is very simple. European white people controlled all of Africa and all of Asia. There were no independent free countries in the world that were not controlled by European imperialists. And that control ended with the end of World War II. Asia and Africa and Latin America emerged from colonial domination. The Vietnam War, which we've read about, was an attempt by the French first. The French, Vietnam was a colony, was owned and operated and run by the French. The French white people telling the Vietnamese Asian people how to live their lives, and they were exploiting them and didn't want to let go of that exploitation until the Vietnamese people threw them out. The Americans stepped into the breach to try to maintain Western hegemony, and we too were thrown out on our asses. Ignominiously, we lost because the Western Empire, the Western Imperial history is coming to an end, and Western imperialism is collapsing. We no longer can control the world. White people are losing control of the world. And indeed, white people are becoming a smaller and smaller percentage of the global population. And this is terribly frightening and disturbing to white Americans who were willing to support any political process that would allow them to maintain control, so that the last election was not a legitimate election because because Democrats voted. And that's the problem for Republicans. The problem is that the people who are voting are not white people, and white people are losing control of the United States, and any effort to maintain that control, even if 70% of the country disagree with you, if you can gain control, that is legitimate. And that's why I say the American Republic has really come to an end. We're not going to see progress in civil rights in the future. What we're going to see is continuing deterioration and lots of violence. And violence, you should understand, is rising globally. It's not just locally here in Michigan. The violence is everywhere. And also we are entering a new period in which, I don't know whether you realize this, but the COP26 meeting was really a death sentence. So, nothing was accomplished. We are still continuing to pour carbon into our atmosphere. And if you want to understand this, basically, there are fires burning in the Arctic. The Arctic has been frozen for tens of thousands of years. It's called permafrost. So for 15,000 years, the soil has been totally frozen solid, and now it's burning. And it's burning uncontrollably. It's burning all year round. It's releasing enormous amounts of methane and carbon into the atmosphere, and it's uncontrollable. It's no longer anything that we can do anything about. But even the things that we could do something about, we have refused to do because we cannot simply let go. We're like the monkey whose hand is caught in the jar, holding on to the cookies, and can't get his hand out of the jar because he won't let go of the cookies. We refuse to let go of our lifestyle. We cannot radically change how we live. And so what you have is the global north, which is the wealthy countries of the world, and the global south, the poor countries of the world. And in the global south, which represents the majority of the world's populations, 2.5% of people are vaccinated. And you get the Omicron variant coming in, and now we know that it's a serious threat. It's very contagious, and it'll get you sick even if you've been vaccinated. However, vaccinations are really important. I want you to know that I listened to the reports from Spectrum Hospital. They give a regular review of the statistics, and you take a look at the chart. I mean, it's just unbelievable. In fact, let me see if I can go and find that really quickly for you. I'll show you my. So I think I put it up. I put it up in my. Wait a minute, it's my photos, I think. Let me see this. Yeah. That's no good. I don't want to show you my photos. So let me go to Facebook. This is probably not going to work. Let's go to, where did I put that? I put that over here, I think. And yeah, and there it is. Here it is. This is mine. This is put out by Spectrum Health Services. They employ 31,000 people. They're the largest health provider in our area. And these are the unvaccinated people who have spaces in our hospital because they have COVID. These people got sick even though they were vaccinated. But when you get to the really sick part, where you're in the ICU unit and you're ready to kick the bucket, you really are in danger of death. That's this number now. So now 92% are unvaccinated, and 9 of the people who are in the ICUs were vaccinated. But when you get even more to the people who are on ventilators, they are 94% are unvaccinated. These are the unvaccinated. There are 4 people who are vaccinated who are that seriously ill. So just a word to the wise, you want to get yourself a vaccine. Okay, so back here to our last chapter. This is a period from 2005 to 2018. Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina was like a super hurricane, and it flooded all of New Orleans. The city of New Orleans population was cut in half. This is what is going to happen now over and over again, more and more severely. We are going to have, especially our coastal cities, are going to be hit by enormous natural disasters that are going to drive people. What happened is half the people who lived in New Orleans left and no longer live in New Orleans. And that's what's going to happen. What you're going to have is climate refugees all over the world who are fleeing to places that are a little bit safer. And Michigan happens to be a little bit safer. So you can look forward to having a lot of climate refugees moving into Michigan. The Great Recession, 2008, this was bigger than the Great Depression. I mean, it's hard to believe it, but it was an enormous collapse of the economy. 100 million people were driven into poverty globally. It took over a decade to recover from. Just in my house, was valued at $145,000 in 2007 before the housing crisis, and then it was valued at $70,000 a year later. And it's just like, that's what happened. The same thing happened to my retirement account. I lost 25% of the savings that I had accrued over a lifetime of working. Don't worry about it, I'm fine. In 2008, as a result of the devastation that George Bush brought upon America. After all, in 9/11, the United States became the hero of the world and got all of the sympathy from the whole world. And with George Bush's war on terror, by the end of his term, most of the countries of the world, even our allies, England and Germany and France, looked upon America with anxiety, suspicion, and fear. And polls asking people around the world, which country is the most dangerous to world peace, put the United States as number 1. We were the most dangerous for world peace. They don't trust us, and they don't trust us for very good reasons. So after George Bush, the collapse of the economy and the collapse of our global anti-terrorism efforts, Barack Obama was elected president and served for 2 years, for 2 terms. He appointed Sonia Sotomayor, who recently talked about the stench that was coming from the Supreme Court currently, and a huge federal stimulus package, the Tea Party movement, the Affordable Care Act. This was a major improvement in healthcare provision. And understand, again, a global perspective. Between 1870 and 1900, the welfare states emerged. And and in Germany, what you had in 1900 was a country that had universal healthcare system, unemployment insurance, a social security system for the aged, and it was all there. The United States was the last country in the world, and reluctantly, to institute these kinds of welfare state programs in the Great Depression, and it left out healthcare because at the time the American Medical Association opposed any government subsidy for healthcare. So the Affordable Care Act was passed with partisan passage. The Democrats passed it, the Republicans hated it, and tried over and over and over again to destroy it, when in fact it had brought in health insurance and health care to tens of millions of Americans who had previously didn't have health insurance. The Arab Spring was an explosion of optimism in the Arab world that really collapsed. I mean, there was a hope that there might be democratic renewal in the Arab world, but all of the enthusiasm and optimism perished, and the regimes there now are primarily authoritarian. And by the way, the Arab world, the Muslim world, has been traditionally in modern times the least democratic, the least educated, where women have the greatest, the least amount of political autonomy. So this was something that was really very hopeful, and it didn't pan out. I said before that we are living in the age of disappointments, and I don't think anything is going to work out for us. Osama bin Laden was killed. This is a great achievement of the Obama administration, but it was irrelevant. I mean, Osama bin Laden, is the most important, one of the most important historical figures of modern times. I mean, all of us have been affected by his actions, but he did not bring down Western civilization. Western civilization was collapsing from World War I to World War II, to the collapse of the Soviet Union, to the 2008 global collapse of the economy. What we are witnessing is the collapse of a civilization that was based on white supremacy, and so it's collapsing. The new empire in the world, the new imperial power in the world, the country that's really powerful, that is emerging and rising and gaining power all the time, is China and India. So there's been a transfer from Western civilization to Eastern civilization, and we're in the midst, we're watching this happen, and it won't take very long. Don't worry about it. You will be able to see the humiliation and degradation of the United States proceed apace. Edward Snowden revealed that, wait, just a second. I'm recording. Edward Snowden revealed that our government was spying on everyone, basically, and that there is no such thing as privacy. Okay, I'm being called, so I'm going to end it there. Have a good week. I hope all of you stay safe. I just got a message from a student who came down with COVID. Please get a vaccine and don't walk around without a mask. Don't go into places, and it's just not going to be safe for you. I'm going to stop my share here, and that's it. We have a good week. We're almost done here, and I will get back to you later. Bye bye.